Welcome to Take Another Look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo with a genuine conversation about what's missing from the human connection. Let's join Melanie and Gerda now.
Good day and welcome to another episode of Take Another Look podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Taddeo Malo, and I'm joined by my incredible co-host,
Gerda Felix.
Gerda, how are you doing?
I am doing well, Melanie. How are you doing?
I am so good. I just wanted, before I get right into this episode, I just wanted to acknowledge what an amazing time I had at our 30th episode. How about you?
Even this morning, I was thinking about it. It was a great time. And I felt that everything that happened the way that it was supposed to. And I felt a peace about it. And also the fact that when I heard the comments, because I heard comments, people shared their comments with me. And they said that it was a beautiful celebration, that they felt they were part of it, that to have an opportunity to speak and comment at, on last Saturday, everybody felt that it was a good time.
Yes, and I had a lot of feedback after as well, and everybody felt included. And they're like, when's the next one?
Yes.
So thank you to our listeners who attended. And if you weren't able to make it, don't worry, because we'll probably do this again in the future sometime because it was such a beautiful experience. So let's get started. Welcome to Take Another Look podcast, where we see you fully, just as you are. And today, Gerda, we're going to talk about judgment. Now, I want to look at this from two perspectives of its conversation, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
When you hear the word judgment, what does it mean to you?
Well, to me, when I hear judgment, it means competition. It also means that I am not accepting something, that I am not good at something, that it feels like it is not what it's supposed to be. So for me, the word judgment, even just as I heard you say that, I felt there's something that happened in my body.
And you know what? That's interesting to me, because I thought the exact same thing as you did before I started to really look into this topic. Because right off the bat, when you hear the word judgment, you think somebody is judging you. They're being judgmental. And that's very true. It's a very big part of it. And I thought, to start the conversation, I'm going to look at the other side of the coin, if you're all right with that.
Absolutely.
Because let's face facts, there's areas of our life where we need to make sensible decisions based on judgment, not the judgment where thinking of that negative voice and then, oh, she said this, she looks like that. No, I'm talking about judging, making decisions, clear, sensible decisions for a good outcome. So let me just give you an example. The first thing, whenever we make a decision, whether it's an entrepreneur, a business owner, or a leader, we have to make judgment calls all the time to better the business. Let's say some new statistics have come out in the field, some different information to make you have to review it, to learn, to listen. See, the first step to make a sensible, solid, sound judgment, Gerda, is the learning piece. And this includes one of your favorite things, active listening and reading. So you need to get all the information, the facts, through literature, documentation, things that may come up that will impact your business. That could be the latest stats and figures. It could be something about any policies or procedures that are being changed in an organization or in the government, whatever it might be. You have to have all the facts in black and white, clearly outlining information you need to consider before you make any judgment calls. And for me, this made sense because we hear so much about misinformation, okay? And we also make a lot of judgment calls based on our heart, our gut. And that's part of it. But the first step they suggest is the learning, listening to what people are saying from credible sources and reading tangible, sound facts that will help guide your decision for you to make a sensible judgment.
Mhm.
The next one, of course, because, you know, after you've done all your learning, you've consumed all the information, including those stats, facts, and figures, is to then bring in your experiences. Because usually if you're a leader, you've had a lot of experience in your life in similar situations. And you're going to weigh what you've just learned with your own personal experiences, because usually we learn from our experiences. And then after all of that, Gerda, this is where we detach ourselves. This is where we have to take a step back, get rid of our biases, our preconceived notions, and bad experiences, and take a look. Because you know what happens? We want to surround ourselves with good people. We've talked about this before, Gerda. And if we surround ourselves with people that are yes men, or the people that are always going to validate what we're saying, we're not going to hear from other people's perspectives. So we're going to just base everything on what we've read and what we've only experienced. But when you have those people around you that come back after you've detached yourself and checked your own biases at the door and heard what others would say, then we now have concrete list of pros and cons so that we can make a sound judgment, to actually make a judgment that's going to benefit people, that's going to benefit the company, the employees, and ourselves as a leader. So for me, when I read this side, I was like, so judgment can be good too. Because like you, the first thing that came into my mind is the other side of the coin, which we'll talk about in a bit. Have you ever had an experience, Gerda, in this sense of the word judgment?
Yes. And of course, when you explained it the way you just did, for me, I see judgment, that word, equally as discernment, as wisdom, as common sense.
Yes.
Because we need to take the time to get the facts, understand the facts, and make a decision so that we can discern what is the best thing that we need to do. So in that sense, yes, in the sense of discernment and wisdom and, you know, common sense, absolutely. Shrewdness, to be shrewd, that's another word.
Yes, that's a good word. But
Yes.
I never looked at judgment in this terms for the longest time. I always saw it in the negative, you know, oh, people are being judgmental. They're judging.
Yes.
So let's talk about that side, because this is
But,
where.
yes. So, and I'll say this. I think the reason we don't see it this way, it's because most of the times we hear, well, do not judge.
Yes.
And perhaps what we should, when we hear do not judge, what people typically means is do not judge the person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You can just, but you can still judge the action.
Exactly.
Okay. So because when we hear do not judge, we automatically go, it's like, you know, well, you know, it's your life. You do what you do, and I do what I do. You know, it's on you. Mm-hmm. But if we were to take this experience and discern from that experience, we would still be making a judgment, yes, whether it is for us or not.
Absolutely. And so when you look at the other side of the coin, like you just said, and we as human beings, it's very natural for us to judge things, people, because we have strong opinions and beliefs. But like you said, we should be judging an individual. We can judge the actions, and we may not agree with them, or we may think they could have made better choices in that situation, but it's not up to us to judge that person. So of course, some judgments I've heard, and I always think of the movie Mean Girls. Do you see that movie?
I know of it. I don't think I've seen it, okay, but so I know what it is.
A younger girl, but it talks about how there's always this clique of little girls in school that always pick on those that are, you know, maybe not as popular, or maybe they're smarter, or they always find these couple people to pick on, and they do really mean things. So whether it's they spread rumors, they talk, oh my gosh, look at what she's wearing, or can you believe that you know, her family's so poor, whatever it is, and that leads and feeds like a virus amongst the school. And it can be so bad that these poor defenseless young girls that are being picked on are bullied so much so to the point where they're ostracized, and some of them take their own lives. It's quite sad. But even as adults, we judge. Gerda, do you judge? Be serious. Come on.
Well, we do, because I think everybody does.
Yes.
I think, this is a normal thing for us to do. But what I come to really understand, when we judge in terms even of gossiping, we are not judging the other person. We're judging ourselves.
Yes. Thank you so much, Gerda. That's beautiful. And how do you feel that? Like, explain that a little bit more, because that's a very deep statement, because it's absolutely true.
Okay, so let's say that I see someone, I give that example because that's the one that comes to my mind. Let's say that I see someone out there, wearing something, and the first thing that comes to my mind is that, ooh, she shouldn't be wearing this, or he shouldn't be wearing that. Well, I am judging that person according to my own set of parameters.
Mm-hmm.
My judgment of that person has nothing to do with he or she. It has to do with me, because according to my own set of parameters, I would not be wearing what this person is wearing if I had that type of body. That has nothing to do with this other person. You know why I know? Well, because if it had, this person wouldn't be wearing what she was wearing.
That's and that's the one thing I think we miss, is we don't know the full story behind situations. So if we see someone act a certain way, or wear something, or have a certain haircut, we don't know what prompted that. Somebody may have a really, really bad hairdo, but perhaps they just finished going through a traumatic experience and they've lost their hair. So they're trying to get it. We don't know the full story, but if we just quick to judge on what we see, we're being judgmental.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And the fact that, and that's why I say we have, I've learned, I've practiced. For me, this is a practice to continually, when something is coming up, like judgment, I ask myself, okay, what is it really that I need to understand from this?
Yes.
Because it is important for me to be focused and to be aware and conscious when judgment comes, because judgment is also a type of bias. Okay, because we judge people from the way they look, their race. We judge them according to what they wear, according to how we think. When you see someone, okay, do you think this person is old, or do you think this person is young? And because of that, well, if I believe this person is old, then, well, maybe she shouldn't be wearing what she's wearing because she's old. When in fact, we could never know.
Exactly. And I know for myself, so many times I've heard, oh, well, Melanie couldn't do it because she's blind. I can't do it. Just because I'm blind doesn't mean I can't do certain things, and that's somebody else's perception. And this happens so many times in life. But at the other side of it, I also hear, oh my gosh, how do you do that, Melanie? Despite your challenges, so again, I think we all face judgment and we all do it subconsciously or consciously. But I love the fact that you're asking yourself the questions, because that's exactly it. For me, judgment also can be very detrimental to ourselves when we're judgmental. So what I mean by that is, like you said, it's about ourselves. So are we hurting that person wearing that outfit that perhaps isn't as flattering? No, but we're thinking it and we're having that negativity in our mind. They say that the more judgmental we are as human beings, the more in fact impacts and affects our own mental health than anybody else's. Can you believe that?
Yes, I believe that. And I'm going to tell you why I believe that.
Oh, please.
I can tell you that with my clients, because, as a spiritual life coach, this is one thing that when people come and work with me, we are in our session. This is one thing I have to ask, I have to point out, because I hear I shouldn't I know better than this. I, like I'm not a good person, and all those things are judgments. Once we learn to accept ourselves the way that we are, okay? When I mean accept ourselves the way that we are, is to acknowledge where we are in this life. Meaning, okay, so in this life right now, this is what Gerda does. Gerda write down things, whether good or bad, only as an observer, meaning this is what life is right now. This is what life is. So once I have acknowledged this without any judgment, then I am able to take responsibility and decide, what am I going to change and what am I going to keep? But if I keep saying, well, I shouldn't, well, should is not what is in reality. Therefore, I am going to continue to judge myself, and that will bring no good results.
Absolutely. So if we're easily able to judge others, then we know we're going to do it to ourselves. And this is very dangerous because when you think about it, and you talk about it so beautifully, the ego, it does a lot, but the heart, the spirit, who makes us who we are, is so easily damaged or impacted, maybe is a better word, impacted by our own.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because do you feel more empowered when you feel that you're victorious, or you have conquered something, or you have achieved? Do you feel more empowered? Or do you feel more empowered when you say, oh my gosh, I'm really not good. I really should have done this. Which way do you feel more empowered?
Well, definitely when you're victorious, for sure.
Okay. So I've been asked this question, meaning as well, because of the way you feel, you move differently when you feel like a hero than when you feel like a victim.
So true. So Gerda, can you share an experience where you felt that you were judged unfairly?
Well, all the time. And I always say, well, whatever people are thinking has nothing to do with me. Yeah. That's one thing I know for a fact, and I do that very quickly. That's what I have learned. It's something that I have learned. I had to do this very quickly. I know they're not talking about, because I know that's not who I am. In the sense, what do I say? In the sense, like, some people might think that I am lazy, and I'm thinking, well, that's not who I am. Because I always think, well, if you knew what I had to do in order for me to come here in this space, you would know that I am not lazy. And because I know myself, I know they're not talking about me. But it's only their perception of what I should be doing, because they're looking at me and seeing the way that I am now. But they don't know how much I had to do in order for me to present myself exactly the way that I am now. So if, they think I'm lazy, or they think, that, well, she's always has to be speaking. I'm thinking that's not true. I speak only when I have something to say. For the most part, I, prefer to be in the background observing. That's who I am. Observing, listening, feeling. That's what I do. And, whatever people think about me, I always think, nah, it's not me. They're not talking about me.
So now, Gerda, obviously that didn't happen overnight for you to be able to just acknowledge it, done and done, because you know that. How did you get there?
That's too funny, because I was thinking about myself today. Okay, the type of person that I am. I get my revelation, they come just in a moment. Now, having said that, I'm not meaning that after only one time something happened, I get the revelation. That's not what I'm saying. But once I get it, it feels like it came suddenly. For me, the way I understand all of this, it's when I am in self-reflection. And I notice my patterns. I notice what I have done. I notice the different things whether, whatever it is, I notice the patterns in my life. And then it almost feels like I hear this voice that say, this is not you. This is not who you are. And once I hear that voice, I feel at peace. That's the way it shows up for me.
Okay.
So that's why when people say whatever they can say, I'm like, okay, they're not talking. They're not talking about me. It's like,
It's interesting though, because I find other people, and including myself, I can be soft-hearted and I can be a little bit impressionable, I suppose, when somebody says something that is their perception or their thought process. For a moment, it does hurt, right? It does make you feel away. And I've had to sit and ponder, why am I feeling hurt? When really, truly, it's just their thoughts, it's just their opinion. I know better. But it took me a long time to get there. I'd stick in the emotion, oh my gosh, I said I couldn't do anything because I was blind, the whole bit. And I would wallow there for a while. But then I realized it wasn't very productive for me. So having that, take the emotion out of it, understand where it's coming from, consider the source, as we say.
Yes.
And acknowledge and then move on. Like for me,
Yes.
that's what I had to learn to do, but it didn't happen overnight.
Maya Angelou said something for me that was was so deep. And Oprah tells that story. She says, one time something happened. I think she read what people were saying about her, what, whoever was saying about her. And then she went to Maya Angelou and she was, I think, crying. And Maya Angelou said to her, you are not in it. And she kept saying, oh, Mama, but this. And Maya says, you are not in it. When I heard this, you have to understand, this was for me so deep. That's when I understood. Whatever people say about you, you are not in it, because it is only their perception of who they think you are, meaning your true self is not in it. Okay. Once I got that, I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah, that is definitely deep. And the thing is, because sometimes when people are mean or judgmental, they're going through something on their own. And therefore, that's why their opinions and things, they get nasty because it makes them feel better. So truly, you gotta question what they're saying, right? So I love that. You take yourself out of it, and then the emotion may go with that. It's not make it easier all the time, but hopefully as human beings, we can understand the impact judgment has on others and on ourselves, and just be mindful the next time we have an opinion to question it. Is it actually about that person? Is it about an action they've taken, or the situation, or the outfit, or the haircut, whatever it might be, and understand that it's not our role to judge them.
Well, here is the other thing. And maybe because I've had the pleasure of being in the company of people who are very loving. And when I mean by very loving, even when you do something, they can correct you, but you don't feel crushed. Those people are so loving that, you make a mistake. They don't come at you and tell you, well, this is the mistake you made. They don't say it this way. They just point you in the right direction. And it is such a loving way to do those kind of things. That's when I know it's only hurt people who hurt people. Loving people do not do that.
That is so true. It's like when we had our conversation about having those uncomfortable conversations, you don't use the you statements. I feel, I this. So perhaps when we're having judgmental thoughts, it should be, I feel that doesn't look good, because I know definitely wouldn't look good on me. I know, maybe taking it from that perspective, maybe make us aware of our judgments. But you're right, because we do need sound judgment. We do. as we talked about, the other side.
Yes.
So if we have people that are loving in our lives that can bring that to our attention because they want us to grow and learn, move forward, there's a way to address them, but without being judgmental. Have you considered this?
Yes, absolutely. And I can tell you this, my mom, when, of course, my mom exercised a lot of wisdom. So when she would say something to us when we've acted out or didn't do something the way she was expecting us, she would give us both. This is the wrong way and this is the right way. And she would let us know, but she would also empower us to be the person that she is raising.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why, I see life as a paradox, and I know there's always good and bad, and they're walking hand in hand. And that's why for me, it's important that we give both. So for example, if you are saying something, let's say to your niece, your nephew, your family members, they've done something that's wrong. You can speak on the actions that were wrong, and then you can affirm the person that they are.
That's it.
That makes a big difference.
Definitely, because you're not trying to change the person.
That's it.
You're just trying to address something that perhaps they're not even aware that's they're doing, or an action they're taking that could in fact hurt them.
Yes. Yeah. And that changes things, because when we know that our person is not being in question, but only our actions are, then we know that we can change the actions and still be the person that we are.
And it's interesting because there's so many areas where bias and unconscious bias, of course, play into that judgment. I remember, growing up, it was like, oh, well, that person's different. You don't want to associate with them. Well, according to who? And again, with the whole disability thing, my parents' era, as I mentioned, they just go on homes. But it took some people to stand up and show people a different way, a different thought process to consider, as well as to break those stereotypes and beliefs, to see a bigger picture. And that started because judgment, obviously, people were judgmental back in the day, and still to this day, because they're afraid of what they see, because they're unsure of it. They don't know, and they're not asking the questions from a place of curiosity or respect, but of just based on what they think from their perception it's right or wrong.
Or simply out of fear, because we truly do things out of two different things. It's either out of love or out of fear. So when we do it out of fear, we tend to be judgmental, we tend to be pointing the fingers, we tend to blame, we tend to put to shame. But when we do it out of love, then it's a whole different ballgame.
Yes. So everybody needs to be loving. That's what we have to do, right?
It's a practice.
It is.
And look at the time.
Oh, so any final thoughts there, Gerda?
Well, the final thought is, in everything, we do need to exercise wisdom. We do need to understand different parts of, the situation. And then we also need to discern what is best for us. So we need to do the steps, because in the end, it is a practice. It is a continuous practice to discern, which will bring us to wisdom.
Absolutely. And I'll just leave everyone with, do unto others as you would want to be done unto you, because the golden rule honestly applies here. So next time you have a judgmental thought, ask yourself why. Where's it coming from, and why is it important to you? Because remember, it is your perception and your opinion. But the next time somebody has judged you, understand it's not about you. As Maya Angelou said, you're not in it.
Exactly.
So until next time,
take another look. See you soon.
bye.
Bye-bye.